I Speak to the World TV reality show.
I speak to the world, speak to the world, I speak to the world. I speak to the world, speak to the world, I speak to the world.
I Speak to the World TV reality show. Speakers are those who chart a new course for their generation. Simply by speaking, you will define your place in the world. This is I Speak to the World TV reality show, and I am B.D. Phillips, your host. I Speak to the World TV reality show. The aim is to develop these young personalities through public speaking and at large engaging them on how they can champion a cause or a new idea in our society. We're going for a short break now, and when we return, we'll be hearing what the contestants have for us for today. I Speak to the World TV reality show. Thank you for staying with us on I Speak to the World TV reality show. The contestant first task was to talk about my dream for the world, their dream for the world. When they become the first president, perhaps the first female president of our beloved country, Nigeria.
Good day, friends and fellow citizens. Called upon to undertake the duties of the first executive office of our country, I avail myself of the presence of that portion of my fellow citizens, which is here assembled to express my grateful thanks for the favor with which they have been pleased to look toward me, to declare a sincere consciousness that the task is above my talent, and that I approach it with those anxious and awful resentment, which the greatness of the church and weakness of my power so justly inspire. A rising nation spread over a wide and fruitful land, traversing all the seas with the rich production of their industries, engaged in commerce with nations who feel power and forget right, advancing rapidly to destinies beyond the reach of mortal eye. When I contemplate this transcendent object and see the honor, the hopes and happiness of this beloved country, committed to the issues and auspice of these days, I shrink from contemplation and humble myself before the magnitude of the undertaking. Utterly in this should I despair did not the presence of many, whom I hear see, remind me that in other high authority I shall find resources of virtue, of wisdom, and of zeal on which to rely under all difficulties. To you then, gentlemen, who are charged with the sovereign function of the legislation, and to those associated with you, I look with encouragement for that guidance and support which may enable us to steer with safety the vessels in which we are all embarked amidst the conflicting elements of a troubled world. Thank you, and God bless Nigeria.
I Speak to the World TV reality show.
Good day, my friends and fellow citizens. Called upon to undertake the duties of the first executive office of our country, I avail myself of the presence of that portion of my fellow citizens which is here assembled to express my grateful thanks for the favor with which they have been pleased to look towards me, to declare a sincere consciousness that the task is above my talent, and that I approach it with those anxious and awful presentiments which the greatness of the charge and the weakness of my power so justly inspire. A rising nation spread over a wide and fruitful land, traversing all the seas with the rich production of their industry, engaged in commerce with nations who feel power and forget right, advancing rapidly beyond destinies of mortal eye. When I contemplate this transcendent object, I see the honor, the happiness and the hopes of this beloved country committed to the issue and the upsides of this day. I shrink from the contemplation and humble myself before the magnitude of the undertaking. Heartily, indeed, should I despair did not the presence of whom I see, Remind me that in the other high authority provided by our Constitution, I shall find resources of wisdom, of virtue, and of zeal, on which to rely under all difficulties. To you, the gentlemen who are charged with the sovereign function of the legislation, and to those associated with you, I look with encouragement for that guidance and support which might enable us to steer with safety the vessel in which we are all embarked amidst the conflicting elements of a troubled world. During the contest of opinion through which we have passed the animation of discussion and of exertions, had sometimes one aspect which might impose on strangers on you to think freely and to speak and to write what they think. But these, being now decided by the voice of the nation, announced according to the rule of the Constitution, all will of course arrange themselves under the rule of law and unite in common effort for the common good. Also, we bear in mind this secured principle that though the will of the majority is in all cases to prevail, that will to be rightful must be reasonable, and the minority possess their equal rights, which equal law must protect and violate with the oppression. Let us then, fellow citizens, unite with one heart and one mind. Let us restore to social intercourse that harmony and affection without which liberty and even life itself are but very things. And let us reflect that, having banished from our land that religious intolerance under which mankind so long bled and suffered, we have yet gained little if we countenance a political intolerance as despotic, as wicked, and capable of as bitter and bloody persecutions, during the throes and convulsions of the ancient world, during the agonizing spasms of infuriated men, seeking through blood and slaughter his long-lost liberty. It was not wonderful that the agitation of the billows should reach even this distant and peaceful shore, that these should be more felt and feared by some and less by others, and should divide opinions as the measure of safety. But every difference of opinion is not a difference of principle. We have called a different name, breathing of the same principle. We are all Republicans, we are all Federalists. If there be any among us who would wish to dissolve this union or to change its Republican form, let them stand undisturbed as monuments of safety in which errors of opinion may be tolerated, where reason is left free to combat it honestly. Indeed, I know that some honest men fear that a Republican government cannot be strong, that this government is not strong enough. But would the honest patriot, in the full tide of successful experiments, abandon a government which has so far kept us free and firm on the theoretic and visionary fear that this government, the world's best hope, may by possibility want energy to preserve itself? I trust not. I believe this, on the contrary, the strongest government on earth. I believe it is the only one where every man at the call of law would fly to the standard of law and would meet invasion of his personal concern or the public orders as his own personal concerns. Sometimes it is said that man cannot be trusted with the government of himself. Can he then be trusted with the government of others? Or have we found angels in forms of kings to govern him? Let history answer this question. Kindly separated by nature and the wide ocean from exterminating havoc of one quarter of the globe, so high-minded to endure the degradations, possessing a chosen country which rooms enough for descendants to the thousand and thousand generation, entertaining a due sense of our equal rights to the use of our own faculties, to acquisition of our industry, to honor and confidence from our fellow citizens, resulting not from birth but from our action and the sense of them. Entertaining a due sense of our equal rights. Enlightened by a benign religion, professed in deed and practiced in various forms, yet all of them inculcating honesty, truth, temperance, and the love of men, which acknowledging and adoring and overruling providence, which by all its dispensations prove that it delights in the happiness of men here and the greater happiness in the year after. With all these blessings, what more is necessary to make a happy and a prosperous people? Still wanting, my fellow citizens, a wise and frugal government, which shall restrain men from injuring one another, shall leave them otherwise free to regulate their own pursuit of industry and improvement, shall not take from the mouth of labor the bread it has earned. This is the sum of good government, and it is necessary to cause the circles of our fellow citizens. I repaired and fellow citizens to the post you have assigned me. with experience enough in subordinate offices to have seen the difficulties of this, the greatest of all, I have learned to expect that it will really fall to the love of imperfect man to retire from this station with the reputation and the favor which bring him into it, without pretensions to that high authority you repose in our first and greatest revolutionary character, whose permanent services has entitled him the first page in his country's love and has destined him the fairest page in its volume of faithful history. I ask so much confidence only as may give feminine an effect to the legal administration of your affairs. I shall often go wrong through the defect of judgment. When right, I shall often be taught wrong by those whose position cannot command a view of the whole ground. I ask your indulgence for my own error, which will never be intentional, and your support against the errors of others who may condemn what they would not, if seen in all its parts. The approbation implied by a suffrage is a great consolation to me for my past and future solicitude, with bill to retain the good opinion of those who have bestowed it in advance, to conciliate that of others by doing them all the good in my power, and to be instrumental to the happiness and freedom of all. Relying then on the patronage of my good will, I advance with obedience to that work, ready to retire from it whenever you become sensible how much better choices it is in your power to make, and may that infinite power which rules the destinies of the universe lead our counsels towards its best and give them a favorable issue for your peace and prosperity. Thank you, and God bless Nigeria.
I Speak to the World TV reality show.
Good day, my fellow citizens. Called upon to undertake the duties of the first executive office of our country, I avail myself of the presence of that portion of my fellow citizens, which is here assembled to express my grateful thanks for the favor with which they be pleased to look towards me, to declare sincere consciousness that the task to above my talent and that I approach it to those anxious and after presentiments, reach the greatness of the charge and the weakness of my power, so justly inspire a rising nation, spread over a wide and fruitful land, traversing of the seas with the rich production of the industry, engaged in commerce with nations who feel power and forget rights, advancing rapidly to destinies beyond the reach of mortal eye. When I contemplate this transcendent object and see the honor, the happiness, and the hopes of this beloved country, compared to the issue and the auspices of this day, I shrink from the contemplation and humble myself before the magnitude of the undertaking. How tally, indeed, should I despair, did not the presence of many, whom I see, remind me that in the other high authority, provided by our constitution, I shall find the sources of wisdom, of virtue, and of zeal, which to rely under all difficulties. To you then, gentlemen, who are charged with the several functions of legislation, and to those associated with you, I look with encouragement for that guidance and support which may enable us to stay with safety to the vessel in which you are embarked amid the completely element of a troubled world. During the contest of opinion, through which you have passed the examination of discussions and resolutions, are sometimes one an aspect which might impose on strangers are used to think freely and to speak and to write what they think. But these, being now decided by the voice of the nation, and not according to the rules of the Constitution, all will of course arrange themselves under the will of the law and unite in common effort for the common good. Also, we bear in mind this sacred principle, that though the will of the majority is in our cases to prevail, that will to be right must be reasonable, that the minority possess their equal rights, which equally must protect, and to violate would be oppression. Let us then, fellow citizens, unite to turn out on one mind. Let us restore to social intercourse, that harmony and affection, with that which liberty and even life itself are but derivatives. And let us reflect that having banished from our land that religious intolerance under which mankind so long bled and suffered, we have yet gained little if we countenance a political intolerance as despotic, as wicked and capable as bitter and bloody persecutions, laying the throes and conversion of the ancient world, leaving the agonizing spasms of a freated man, seeking true blood and slaughter his non-lost liberty. It was not wonderful that the agitations of the greeders should reach even this distant and peaceful shore, that these should be felt and feared by some and less by others, and should divide opinion as to measures of safety. But every difference of opinion is not a difference of principle. We have called by different names brothers of the same principle. We are all Republicans, we are all Federalists. If there be any among us who would wish to dissolve this union or to change this Republican form, let them stand undisturbed and monument of the safety with which errors of opinion may be tolerated, where reason is left free to combat it. I know, indeed, that some honest men who fear that a Republican government cannot be strong, that this government is not strong enough, but will be the honest patriots and the full time of successful experiment. I abandon a government which has so far kept us free and firm on the theoretical and visionary faith that this government, the world best hope, if I possibly want energy to preserve itself. I trust not. I believe this, on the contrary, the strongest government on earth. I believe it's the only one where every man at the call of the law will fly to the standard of the law and will meet invasions of the public order as his own personal concern. Sometimes it is said that man cannot be trusted with the government of himself. Can he then be trusted with the government of others? Or have we found angels in the form of kings to govern him? Let history answer this question. Kindly separated by nature and the wide ocean from the exterminating havoc of a quarter of the globe, so are reminded to enjoy the degradations of the others, possessing a chosen country with room enough for our descendants to the thousand and thousand generation, entertaining the distance of our equal rights to the use of our own faculties, to the acquisition of our own industry, to honor and confidence from our fellow citizens, resulting not from birth, but from our action and the sense of them, enlightened by a belief religion, professed, indeed, and practiced in various forms. Yet, all of them inculcating honesty, truth, temperance, and the love of man, acknowledging and adoring and overruling providence, which by all his dispensation prove that he delights in the love of man.
I Speak to the World TV reality show. I call you away again with another exciting episode of I Speak to the World TV show. Keep speaking to the world.